Hello, Indian mythology fans. My name is Sonika, and I am the author of the book Who God Really Is. Now, who says that Brahma in the Hindu trinity is the lowest in status of all three Hindu trinity gods? Today I bring you the story behind the famous and highly revered Lord Dattatreya, a divine figure who embodies the essence of the Hindu trinity, including Brahma, the creator. He is the complete avatar of Brahma, Vishnu, the preserver, and Lord Shiva, the destroyer. As always, after completing the story, I will teach you the very useful lessons of this ancient Hindu myth that you can still apply to your modern life in the 21st century, especially your mindset in this overly stimulating world that we live in right now. Now, Hinduism is sometimes called a complicated religion. It's why I wrote the book Who God Really Is, a book in which the principles of Hinduism are best understood and God is explained through a modern rational lens. Do grab your copy on Amazon today. Let me tell you the story of the birth of Lord Dattatreya now. The story begins with a couple known for their unwavering piety and devotion, sage Atri and his wife Anasuya. They lived in the forest, leading a life of austerity, meditation, and service. Atri was one of the Saptarishis, or the 7 great sages, and Anasuya was the epitome of a virtue and chastity. Her name literally means without jealousy. Anasuya's pativrata dharma, or devotion to her husband, was so pure that her fame spread through the heavens. Her reputation for selfless devotion began to worry even the gods' consorts, Goddess Saraswati, Goddess Lakshmi, and Goddess Parvati, the wives of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva respectively. They were concerned that Anasuya's virtue was so intense that it might destabilize the cosmic order or cause their husbands, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Lord Vishnu, to grant her an impossible boon. In response, the 3 goddesses urged their husbands to test Anasuya's chastity and devotion. So Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, and Lord Shiva agreed to descend to earth, but not in their divine forms. Instead, they disguised themselves as wandering ascetics and visited Anasuya's ashram while sage Atri was away in meditation. The disguised ascetics approached Anasuya and said, "O virtuous one, we are wandering monks. We have taken a vow not to accept alms from anyone unless the offering is given in the nude. Only then will we eat." Now, this put Anasuya in a real dilemma. Feeding guests, especially monks, is a sacred duty, but appearing naked before men other than her husband would violate her pativrata dharma, or her devotion to her husband. So what could she do? What could Anasuya do? This was quite an uncomfortable dilemma. Anasuya, calm and serene, turned inward and meditated on her husband, invoking his spiritual power and her own purity. Then she sprinkled a few drops of sacred water on the ascetics and uttered a powerful prayer. Poof! The 3 ascetics immediately turned into infants, stripped of their powers and egos. In that form, they no longer posed a threat to her chastity. Smiling gently, Anasuya nursed them and fed them with maternal affection, fulfilling their request without breaking her vow. So she exposed herself to the infants, but cradled them with love. If you are enjoying this podcast, please leave a rating or review. I really appreciate it. Now, when the gods didn't return, Parvati, Saraswati, and Lakshmi grew anxious and descended to earth. Upon learning what had happened, the goddesses pleaded with Anasuya to restore their husbands to their original forms. Remember, their husbands are the three Hindu trinity gods, the three powerful Hindu trinity gods. Anasuya, ever gracious, agreed. She prayed again, and the three babies transformed into their divine forms. Impressed beyond words and humbled by Anasuya's spiritual might and purity, the Hindu trinity gods offered her a boon. Anasuya and Atri asked for something truly extraordinary. May all three of you be born to us as a single child, combining your divine energies and powers. The gods smiled, and the goddesses also smiled, and granted this rare and profound wish. In due time, Anasuya gave birth to a radiant child, Dattatreya. The name itself is symbolic. Datta means given or gifted, because he was truly gifted by the Hindu gods. And Atreya means son of Atri, one of the powerful sages, one of the great 7 sages in Hinduism. Though Dattatreya was one child, he embodied the combined divine essence of Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, and Lord Shiva. Some accounts say that he had 3 heads and 6 arms, each set, symbolizing the 3 deities and their attributes. But unlike most divine incarnations, Lord Dattatreya didn't take on the usual role of an avatar involved in cosmic drama or war. Instead, he became the eternal sage, a wandering ascetic, Avadhuta, and the guru of all gurus. His teachings were deep, mystical, and non-dualistic, emphasizing self-realization and the unity of all existence. Dattatreya's life and teachings form the bedrock of many spiritual traditions, especially the Nath tradition and Avadhuta Sampradaya. He is considered the original teacher of the Avadhuta Gita, a powerful text on Advaita, or non-duality. Lord Dattatreya is often depicted surrounded by 4 dogs, which symbolize the 4 Vedas in Hinduism, a cow symbolizing Mother Earth and Dharma, and also he is sometimes standing under a wish-fulfilling tree, the Kalpa Vriksha. Now, what are the relevant lessons for us in the 21st century from this Hindu myth of Lord Dattatreya's conception and birth? Anasuya's purity mirrors the untainted self in each one of us. Anasuya represents the original, undistorted state of consciousness, one that isn't stained by unnecessary ego, fear, or societal conditioning. Her name, meaning without jealousy or without envy, points to a mind that hasn't been shaped by scarcity or comparison, unlike many of our mindset programs today. The moment we begin comparing, fearing loss, or seeking validation, we deviate from this inner clarity. Healing begins when we return to that Anasuya-like awareness, untainted, clear, self-realized, self-confident, and aligned with the truth of God, which, by the way, you can understand much better and learn from my book, Who God Really Is, on Amazon today. Now, the disguised gods who show up as monks in front of Anasuya, claiming that they can only be honored if they are given alms by a person who is nude, they reflect our tests and limiting beliefs and potential self-sabotage. The test Anasuya faces, giving alms while staying true to her values, mirrors the inner dilemmas we all encounter. Sometimes our conditioned beliefs present themselves in tricky disguised forms. These are the gods in disguise, so to speak, within us. Beliefs like, I must please everyone to be loved, or I have to, again, be kind and integrative toward the person I have forgiven. I have to please a person who has honestly asked me to forgive him or her. So just as Anasuya turned to her inner power rather than fear, we too, or she actually turned to her foundation, which was her husband, because she was so devoted to her husband, who was one of the great, or one of the 7 great sages. So he formed his qualities, his powers, his intelligence, his fortitude formed her foundation. And she turned to that power, that power that lies in that foundation when she was tested, rather than fear and nervousness, in order to transcend the false dualities, the trickiness, the tests that were being presented by the 3 Hindu trinity gods, or the Hindu trinity gods. Transformation of the gods into babies symbolizes ego disarming. So disarming the ego. And this is, again, in this Hindu myth, we see how the Hindu gods, they again and again and again, they use themselves as examples. They don't mind kind of almost lowering themselves, of becoming, characters with ego at many times in different Hindu stories, in order to teach us important lessons in the 21st century through their examples, right? Through themselves. And that is something so powerful about Hinduism and Hindu mythology, is that we see that happening. That's not always the case with many other, spiritual, let's say, powerful figures or masters, or those who are worshipped in other religious traditions and other religious texts, from other religious traditions. In Hinduism, we actually see the most powerful Hindu gods often lower themselves into states of being that are really not their own, in order to teach us important lessons that we need to learn to shape ourselves into better beings, and to develop more honest and healthy, fulfilling relationships with others in the 21st century. Okay, so they kind of use themselves. So it's a form of self-sacrifice that we experience on behalf of the Hindu gods and goddesses in Hindu mythology. Now, when Anasuya turns the powerful gods into infants in this Indian myth, it symbolizes the softening of the ego. And she does it in a very clever way, and sometimes that's what's needed. And she was provided that great power because she was so devoted to one of the great sages in Hinduism, her husband, Atri. Our mindset patterns, especially the ones rooted in control, superiority, must be reduced to their harmless, vulnerable essence before they can be nurtured or released. This is what this aspect of this Indian myth of Lord Dattatreya's birth is teaching us. When the gods transform into babies, or when Anasuya causes them to transform into babies, that is when their desire to control and to express superiority and to put others into sort of a corner that desire is reduced. It's almost incinerated. True healing doesn't come through force, but through love and understanding, and sometimes also applying wise, proper intelligence, wisdom when we are faced with tests like this. That's what Anasuya did, and then she fed the babies with maternal compassion. So it's like these gods, they almost surrendered and became vulnerable to Anasuya. And so then she was willing to be more of a mother to them. She was willing to expose herself to them, her nudity, her breasts. She was exposing her breasts to them. She did not fear becoming vulnerable to them. But that is only after they became willing children, willing dependents upon her. when those monks or gods disguised as monks became willing children to Anasuya. When Anasuya asks for the gods to be reborn as her child, it symbolizes integration. She doesn't reject or punish the forces that tested her. She lovingly welcomes them into her life. In mindset work, this teaches us that healing doesn't mean erasing the parts of us that were conditioned or flawed. And it doesn't mean, seeking revenge or going after those who tried to even test us knowingly or unknowingly in our lives. People that we meet, people that are unsure of us, people that don't know how to deal with us. They may test us unknowingly or knowingly, but we don't have to act with revenge toward them. Anasuya's example teaches us integration is important. We must give these individuals new purpose. We must understand what the lessons are through them. And that's exactly what Anasuya did. And she allowed divine intelligence to be reborn into one entity, one complete, whole, and wise entity. The birth of Lord Dattatreya, who embodies Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva again, represents the birth of a fully healed, integrated being. He is not one aspect, but the unity of all, creator, sustainer, and transformer. When we do the deep work of healing our mental programs, releasing guilt, fear, or unworthiness, we don't just become better versions of ourselves. We become more whole, capable of creating, preserving, and transforming life from a state of spiritual maturity, and one that does not require us to be at war or to be warriors like some of the other characters we find, some of the other divine characters we find in Hindu mythology. Again, Lord Dattatreya did not take on that role as a warrior, as a spiritual warrior of any kind, which even Lord Krishna was. Lord Dattatreya lived more according to teachings and spreading wisdom and changing people through being an ascetic and a teacher. Kind of a nomadic teacher. Now, if you have found it somewhat difficult to understand God well through the often complex Hindu stories, then do read my book, Who God Really Is, on Amazon. It is a book in which the principles of Hinduism are best understood and God is explained through a modern, rational lens. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak with you in the next episode.